It's the Germany Experience, the podcast about life in Germany as seen through the eyes of outsiders. Visit the website, thegermanyexperience.de, or email me at info@thegermanyexperience.de. And this is a very, very exciting and special episode because we're recording it live in Berlin. And I'm so excited, I'm a little out of breath. I won't lie. Calm down. But it's, I'm recording it live. This is my very, very first live show, and I have live guests. I mean, I do have live guests usually, but this time it's live. So we're going to get to my guests at the moment. But firstly, I just want to say thank you to the sound guys for getting everything set up, and also to the organizers of this festival. I think as a podcast fan and as a podcaster, a festival like this makes me feel all tingly. And so I really love that something like this exists, and that, it seems to be quite well supported and a lot of cool things in the program. So I think it's very cool. And to the audience members, we actually have an audience. Can I hear so that people? Thank you. Wow, that is impressive. I just wanted to prove that we actually do have an audience here for this show. So, as I said, we're recording live, and this is a special episode about life in Berlin specifically. Now, this is something that I haven't really done on my podcast before, but it's something that I want to do a few special episodes about, just focusing on specific cities across Germany, like Hamburg, like Munich, and so on. I personally have always had a special connection to Berlin because, like, for example, I celebrated my 30th birthday here. I went on one of the best work conferences of my life here in Berlin a few years ago. And then in fact, this year, I was at Tempelhof Sounds Festival, which is an indie rock festival. And it was my first music experience since 2018. So that was pretty special, and it was, like, created a lot of memories. So that's the thing about Berlin for me, is every time I come here, I create memories. This is like instant memories. And even now on this trip, doing my first live show and talking to you guys, memory. So it's amazing. This place is amazing for me. But the thing is, I see Berlin through a tourist's eyes, obviously, because it's literally a fun place for me to come, hang out, experience, and then I go home to my life in the rural countryside of Bavaria. And literally, I am 40 kilometers away from the nearest city. You could not be more countryside than what I am. And then, to come to a city is it's pretty crazy. I can tell you, it's weird. Yeah, so I've always wondered, what is life actually like here in Berlin? So that's what I'm trying to find out today, specifically for foreigners. And my guests are all foreigners, and they're going to help me understand this. So before I even introduce them, I want to say a special thank you for taking time out on your Saturday afternoon to come down here and record this episode. It's very cool that you could do that. So my guests, first of all, I have Olivera. And am I saying that correctly?
Yes, you actually are, which is surprising because it doesn't happen often. So well done.
I can only imagine what the Germans do.
Oh, it's Oliviera usually here. Yeah. But yeah.
But you are an Instagrammer and a YouTuber, and you do a lot of videos about Berlin. You're called Oliviera Darko on Instagram and YouTube. And to be honest, I'm not 100% sure where you're from, but we're going to get to that. I know you used to live in London, but now, and then I think I remember somewhere that you're from Bulgaria. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Half. Okay. So
it's quite complicated, but yes.
That's what we're here for. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Then I have two guests who I think people will know their voices because they also host a podcast. It's called Americans in Germany Drinking Whiskey. And they've also been on my podcast as guests before. And you guys live in Berlin. And one of the things that you talk about on your podcast, like Olivera on the Instagram and YouTube channels, is life in Berlin, everything. So you guys are it's already a topic that you speak a lot about. So welcome to the German Experience.
Thank you.
And before we get into the Berlin discussion, I just want to focus on you guys one at a time. So first of all, we'll start with you, Olivera. Please settle this for me. Where are you originally from, and how did you end up in Berlin?
Okay, so basically my dad is Serbian, my mom is Bulgarian, but I never really lived there. So I was born in France, and then we moved to the States afterwards where my sister was born. And then I grew up in Belgium for a while. So I lived in Belgium for about 10 years. And then I moved to London to finish like my A-levels and then go to university. So then I was there for a good 9 years. And towards the end of my time in London, I met a guy in Singapore where my dad was living at the time. There's so many countries. So
I've lost track. I'm literally just nodding and smiling at this point.
So in Singapore, I met someone and he was German and he was there working, and we met on the last day of him being there and the last day of me being there, and we met on good old Tinder.
But literally the last day.
Literally the last day. Yeah. And we didn't think anything of it. Like, you know, he left, I left. Yeah. And then we've been together for 5 years since then. And he was living in Mannheim in Germany, pretty much his entire time. And I was in London, then I was in South Africa, then I was in New York. So yeah, so I was moving around a lot, and we did long distance for pretty much 5 years, which was kind of insane. But I just wasn't going to move to Mannheim because I just was like, yeah, like, I mean, nice place.
It is,
but like, what am I going to do there? You know, and I don't speak German, unfortunately. I mean, I'm trying now, you know, I'm learning ein bisschen, but like, it was just one of those places that I felt like I would be so lost in and probably get a little depressed. And like, his life was already built there. He had all his friends, his work, and I would just be kind of joining his life in Germany. And I didn't really want to do that. So then finally, like 5 years later, he's like, yeah, I'm moving to Berlin. We're starting like a company with my friends. You know, I think this is the perfect place for us to finally live together. And I'd been to Berlin only like a little bit when I was younger on like school trips. So I'd only seen it like in the touristy way, you know, going to like monuments and this and that. So I didn't really know much about it, but I came to visit for 2 weeks and I loved it. I was like, this place, I could totally see myself living here. First of all, the vegan food is insane. So I was like, this is for me. And also just in general, like I just felt like I could actually find a place here. And because we were both moving here, you know, for the first time together, it wasn't like I was moving into someone's life. It was like we were kind of starting together. So that's kind of why I ended up here.
Wow. So, okay. So my head is spinning from the first part of that story.
Sorry about that.
But we'll get back to that. The other thing that I forgot to mention in the introduction is, of course, that you're vegan. And I think you may have started your YouTube channel being about that specifically, or because there's a lot of vegan content in the beginning.
Nah, the YouTube thing is like, it's a whole other story. It's complicated. It started as a Bulgarian channel and then I went into like making it I have 2 channels and they're separate. And but I turned vegan about 1.5 years ago. So it's quite new actually. And yeah, I started with vegan videos a lot on YouTube, and then I felt a little restricted. Like I didn't want my channel to be just about that. So that's why when I moved to Germany, I was like, I realized there was a whole like German video situation going on online.
There is,
like,
it's a big scene.
It was like
it's
a
like a huge scene.
Yeah, I was like, this is a thing. So it's like, well, I'm living here and I have a lot of opinions, so
might as well.
You know, might as well.
Everyone needs to know them.
Like I just posted a random video about Germany and it got like a lot of attraction on YouTube, and I was like, why are people so into this? And then I discovered the whole scene. So and then I got more into doing just like living in Berlin videos because I was here and I was already vlogging, so I thought, why not post them anyway? And that's how it turned into like from vegan to Berlin, and now it's like Berlin and vegan because it works here.
Works perfectly here.
Yeah.
And that's something we'll get to as well, because I wanted to ask about the being vegan in Berlin. I know that's something that you've done videos about. So what do you tell people when they ask you where you're from? Like, what is your
that question?
I know. I guess. So what is your standard answer? You're in an elevator. Somebody's like, "Oh, good to meet you. Where are you from?"
I would probably just say Bulgaria and Serbia.
Okay.
Because that's, I guess, where I'm like originally from, and it's the language I speak at home. Kind of, we speak like Bulgarian, Serbian, and English in one, and it doesn't make sense, but it does to us, so it's fine. So yeah.
Wow.
And since you've moved here, how long did you say you've been in Berlin for?
Since October.
So ganz frisch, as the Germans would like to say. Very, very, very fresh. What are your opinions of it after this amount of time that you've had here?
So they change. I think at the beginning it was, I wouldn't say necessarily a culture shock because I've been to Germany many times. So like I was already used to certain things that Germans do that I thought were weird in the beginning, but now
they stay weird, by the way.
They do stay weird, but you do get used to them and you kind of become one of them and you're like, yeah, it's not weird anymore. But I would say like I've really been enjoying it, and I actually got myself a part-time job here because I really wanted to feel more connected to the country. And I feel like if you're studying or you're working somewhere, you instantly feel a little bit more, part of the country, because like I always did like freelance stuff always on my own, a lot of work from home, which is nice. But then I don't know, it's harder to meet people sometimes. And then I started working at like a period underwear startup.
Right.
And I just met so many cool people, and I felt so much more like involved in like the culture in Berlin and visiting places around with like making friends. And I just really started loving it. So yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. I'm still here. So.
And that's something that's come up on this podcast as well, is that sense of like a lot of people who leave, it's because they never developed a connection to Germany or a feeling of like this could be my place. And part of that is friends and a sense of purpose. Like I guess like having something that you contribute and that you gain from the thing. It really creates that bond between you and the city.
And I think it helps that it's so international here that it is possible, because like I said, Mannheim would have been a different story. But like here I'm like, yeah, it really like everyone speaks English, and actually some people don't even speak German, like in cafes and stuff that work there. At first I was like, what?
It is so strange. It's like I was saying whenever I come from my little rural village and then I come out to Berlin, it blows my mind because I walk around, I hear English everywhere, and I hear not only English but Spanish, French, and everything. But obviously, I pick up the English a lot. I'm like, this is so amazing. And then I go back to my little dorf, and no one. You don't even hear Hochdeutsch there. You just hear the local dialect.
I'm sure there if somebody was speaking English walking down the street, I mean, people would be looking out their windows like, what? Who's that?
Yeah. People definitely notice when you talk English in my little village. So that's one of the things that I think that does help living in a city that is very, very international. Something that I wanted to talk to you about, you mentioned your part-time job, but you're a full-time content creator. That's what you do, like the whole day. So you go to work. I mean, I don't know, do you work remotely or?
You can choose. It's flexible. So whatever you want.
So then you content create in the morning, and then you come home and you content create.
Yeah, pretty much. Just like I always have my camera with me in case something happens and I can capture it. But yeah, I pretty much like go to work, or I'll work from home for like the company for a few hours, and then I'll just work on my own stuff. But it's 20 hours a week for them only. So the other 20 is like for my own content on YouTube, Instagram, whatever I need to do. So yeah.
And I think that's also, like you were mentioning Mannheim earlier, and really, we're not dissing on Mannheim, because just there'll be someone from Mannheim and they're like,
no, it's great.
You stop this podcast now. It's not about that. It's about the centrality of it, and also the opportunities that foreigners, like you were saying, whose German might not be that great, have in a place like Berlin or the bigger cities.
Yeah, I get a lot of comments of people being like, I want to move to Berlin, but I'm really afraid. Like, I'm scared. Am I going to be like lonely? Is it going to be hard? I don't speak German. And honestly, like, no, it's fine. I think if you're going to choose a place in Germany to move to as a foreigner, like Berlin is probably like your number one choice. That makes the most sense.
So tell me briefly about your social media channels, the Instagram and YouTube, and what you do there.
So I started actually my YouTube channel about 6 years ago now, maybe 7. And I started just for fun doing like comedy skits. I thought I was funny. It probably really wasn't funny.
Are they still there?
I think so.
So
I'm not going to tell you the name.
Come on.
So I started it in English, and then I don't know if you remember, but on YouTube there was this big trend back in the day of tasting snacks from different countries. Like it was such a thing. I mean, it might still be, I don't know. And I did one where I was like tasting Bulgarian candy, and it was all in English. It was all, I don't know. And I didn't really get views on it much. And then the algorithm somehow like pushed it out a month later. And all of a sudden like 10,000 Bulgarians found it somehow and were like demanding Bulgarian videos now. And I was like, why? Like I was so confused. And I was like, this is not a Bulgarian channel, but okay. And then they figured out I was Bulgarian because I think I said like a sentence in Bulgarian in the video.
Okay.
And they were like hyped. And then it kind of slowly turned into a Bulgarian channel. Somehow. And then it really
niche,
grew.
You know?
Yeah, because it grew so quickly. And I was like, now there's like literally 50,000 Bulgarian people here and they're demanding stuff. And I was freaking out. So I was like, I guess I have to speak Bulgarian. And then I did that for like a good 2 years. Realized there was really no market there. Like I couldn't really have a business with it because the country is so small, and it was
and they're very
difficult.
Demanding apparently.
And they're very demanding. No, they're sweet. Like they were really supportive. I had a really nice community, but it was just it was just difficult to like grow. I mean, we are 6 million people in the whole country, so it's very limited. So then I started this other channel, which is the one and there I just did like vlogs, like regular stuff. I did a lot on fitness and nutrition at the beginning, then I went to the vegan stage, and now I'm doing the Germany vlogs. So
cool. Very cool. And Instagram as well. You post a lot of stories.
Instagram was mainly just connected from my YouTube channel, so most people that followed me like came from my YouTube channel. That's kind of how it worked.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. And we're gonna get more into your attachments to Berlin, or your feelings and opinions into Berlin, but let's move on to Alex.
Okay. Hi.
Oh, the voice.
Hello.
Yeah, I
The
do
voice.
apologize.
So before you apologize, I just want to say, usually your voice is very husky on the podcast.
That's
It's like
true,
you have
yeah.
a very naturally husky voice. And I mean that as a compliment. It's like a very, very cool voice. I mean, okay, now this is getting weird. I'm just going to stop talking about
Thanks,
your
Sean.
voice. But it's particularly husky today.
Yeah, today's rough. I had a night last night, so I do apologize. But again, the ultimate goal is to just ruin your podcast a little bit. You know?
So we were discussing this beforehand. They are also a podcast, Americans in Germany Drinking Whiskey. Also focus on life in Germany for foreigners. So I mean, it's kind of rival territory. So they're here to destroy my podcast, apparently. So
That's been our only goal for the past 2 years. It's just to bring
and their
you down.
chairs are so high. Like it seemed like it all happened by accident, but I think that there's a sort of purpose
Long
to
planning.
everything. Long planning. So, tell me, how did you end up in Berlin?
Yeah, so I came to Berlin right after I graduated university. So I was 22 years old. I had a friend living here she was in Berlin. I was still in the States. And she messaged me one evening, like 5 a.m, Berlin time, talking about how she's back from the club, and where I'm from, everything closes at 1 o'clock. I was like, "What? Where are you again?" She's like, "Oh, I'm in Berlin." I was like, "That's Germany, right?" I was very stereotypical American and did not know geography very well. It's like, "Yeah, you should go. You just move over." And I never even thought about going to Europe. I've never been to Europe. Never really traveled very often. And I was like, "Yeah, find me a job," laughing about it. It's like, there's a lot of kindergarten jobs because I'm a kindergarten teacher.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find a job in the States. So I thought, all right, I'm not doing anything else. I'm working at a pizza place. Let's just buy a ticket and fly on over.
Right.
Yeah.
That's one
And
does.
that was almost 9 years ago now.
Yeah. So you're here to say you're working as a kindergarten teacher here as well in Germany, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So is it a German kindergarten?
It's a bilingual kindergarten, so it's very international. It's actually one of the biggest kindergartens in Berlin, which is
Really?
pretty cool. Okay. Yeah, 320 children.
What?
Yeah, it's enormous.
Oh my God, there's like 12 kids in the kindergarten in my village.
Yeah, 18 groups, 320 children, and people from all over the world. So it's really cool. It's a really cool work environment. The teachers aren't just from English-speaking countries or Germany. They're from everywhere.
From all over.
Yeah.
That is incredible, and I think because when someone says to me that they're a kindergarten teacher, I would not think that there's a lot of opportunity for them because I automatically think like German kindergartens. If you can't, I mean, I don't know how good your German was back then, but I just automatically assume that would be a difficult step to make to be in a kindergarten. But of course, in a city like Berlin, it's possible.
I off the top of my head, I can think of like 7 or 8 big bilingual kindergartens or schools.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Yeah.
That is amazing. So, but do you deal with you have German kids there as well?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. In the episode that you guys were on, you said that Berlin, the reason you came and you mention it now is because Berlin is a party city. And that was one of the reasons.
I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, with the husky voice. I'm just, I'm interested. Has that changed since you?
Yeah,
came?
yeah. I mean, I still like to party. I like to have fun. Yeah. But my first few years here, I was really going to a lot of clubs, staying out till sunrise.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm in my 30s now. It's more difficult to do, and it just doesn't interest me as much anymore. I'd rather go to an Eckkneipe, like a small little German bar, and be with some friends and hang out there. And yeah, I mean, last night was a staff party. It was a bit different,
right?
But
of course, that's what they all say. Like last night was just a one
just
staff party.
one-off.
It's not every night.
But yeah, I mean, that was kind of the appeal a bit because it's just so different than where I'm from in the States.
Yeah.
So I was like, I have to experience this. And I learned about Berlin techno and how kind of totally different the clubs are, and very open and free, and you can do what you want. So that kind of appealed to me to a certain extent. But yeah, now it's not really my jam as much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing that you said in that
you're really cashing my checks.
I'm just gonna keep
Wow.
borrowing you until you walk out this room crying. That's my goal here. No, the other thing that you said then, and this was the interview was in 2020, was that you've stayed in Berlin so long for various reasons, but one of the reasons is that it aligns with your values.
Yes.
And I think that was the word that you used, if I'm not mistaken. What values are those, and is that still the case now that you're still here?
Yeah, so Berlin is obviously a very free and open city, and I love that, you can dress how you want, you can be who you want, you can do what you want to do, and there's really no judgment here. And I have not found that in other places. And that just, I like living in an area where people can just be themselves.
Yeah.
And I've had friends visit and they said they felt more themselves in Berlin than they did in their hometown because they could just relax a bit.
Yeah.
You don't have to put on a persona really.
Yeah.
And that really appeals to me. I mean, politically as well, it's a very leftist city. And I'm down that road a bit, especially being an American right now. I think Berlin is definitely a little more, down my alley.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that hasn't changed at all. I mean, I've learned more while living here, and I've gotten more into the culture, of course, after, almost a decade. That's going to happen naturally. And now it's just home,
Yeah.
So now I don't feel like I'm here necessarily because those things. I still am, but I'm also here because now it's home. I couldn't imagine living anywhere else anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Nice. Jeff,
Hey.
where are you from and how did you end up in Berlin?
California originally, small city
You
called.
definitely have that California vibe.
Yeah. Really tiny, 10,000 person little dorf called Scotts Valley. It's right next to Santa Cruz, which is a big surfing place, if anybody knows it, near San Francisco. So, the whole Bay Area vibe there. Yeah. So I started there. And then when I graduated high school, I decided not to go to college. And I just ended up traveling a lot. So I did a lot of, 2-month backpacking trips through Europe and stuff, and just kind of just fell in love with traveling in general, growing up in the US, it's a very isolated place. I mean, you have an ocean on either side, and
It's huge.
It's not a thing where you can hop on a train in an hour, you're in a different country with a different culture or a different language. So I just fell in love with that. And I think I can't remember when it was, but after a few years of kind of working and traveling, I said, you know what, I want to try living abroad once. Just try it out. Not for a long period, but I just want to do it for 3 months, just see what it's like, experience it, learn a little bit of German because I'd always been interested in Germany. So I was going to move to Munich. But of course, this was before I knew anything about Munich, and I didn't realize how expensive Munich was. So I defaulted to Vienna. I mean, it's close enough, right? So, and you can learn German there anyway. So, and Vienna's beautiful. So I went to Vienna, lived there for a few months, and then just realized I'm really just loving this. Being around people from all different cultures and learning German. It was like the first time in a long time I learned something that I actually wanted to learn. In school, it was a lot of subjects I just had no interest in, but I was excited about this. But then I kind of realized, legally I can only stay for 3 months, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll be honest, I ended up overstaying my visa.
What?
Just a little bit.
I'm going to be sending this little clip to the authorities.
Yeah, just a little bit. But then when I decided to stay permanently, I realized, Austria is very small and there aren't a lot of opportunities for foreigners. And it was at a party. I wish I could remember who it was, but a friend of mine back then just said, you know what? I've got a lot of friends who live in Berlin. I've heard it's really easy for foreigners to live there. Germany's a much bigger country, bigger economy. You could probably more easily get a job there. So then a month later, I moved to Berlin to try it out. Yeah. And, but then of course I came up with the wall of, I'm still technically illegal here. I'll never be able to get a work permit. I'll never be able to do anything. So I made the decision, I'm going to go back home for the year or whatever I have to do to make myself legal again. And it was actually a good thing because when I had moved to Europe, I didn't plan on moving long term. So I wasn't set up for that. You know what I mean? I hadn't done all the proper research. So that year back was actually good for me to kind of reset everything, do the proper research, work a little bit, save up some more money. Yeah.
And then I guess get some goals or some ideas of what you're hoping to achieve.
Exactly, yeah. And so then I ended up moving back to Berlin properly a year and a half later. And that was 10.5 years ago. So
10.5 years, and you're still here.
Wow.
Yeah, still here. Yeah.
You're a voice actor. Are you still a voice actor?
Because I was more in my real career was in film and film editing, but when the pandemic hit and all film worldwide kind of shut down, my work dropped to zero, and so I took the voice acting, which was more of a side hobby, and I out of necessity turned it into I need to do this full time so I can bring money in, because my normal job is gone. So the past 2 years I've been focusing on voice acting. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Has being in Berlin made any difference to that, or do you get jobs from the States or everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, well, the nice thing is, you can get jobs from all over. Like I have my home little like voice booth that I built, that I record in, and you can do stuff, just send them the files when they need them. But being in Berlin did help because there is a lot of voice agencies here, a lot of acting agencies here, because there is the big film industry, with Babelsberg and all that in Berlin. So I think that helped me get in the door a few years ago when I was just doing it as a hobby, because it was pretty easy, and a lot of American companies come to voiceovers from Berlin because they can pay a third of what they pay
over there
back in the States.
I didn't think about that before. That's interesting. So okay.
Yeah, same with a lot of American movies, that don't even take place in Berlin. They take place in the States, but they film them in Berlin because they can pay the workers about half of what they pay, the crews back at home.
Yeah, it's the same with Bulgaria. Like everything is shown. I'm actually an actress as well. I don't know if this is, and we're shooting a movie now actually in 2 weeks in Bulgaria, and it's an American movie, but like they're shooting it in Bulgaria. So then I get loads of opportunities because like I don't need to like be flown over. I mean, I fly myself over, but I'm like local artist. So like it's so good for me. But then my accent, I can also do like, if I try, I can do like an American accent.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Before we move on though, tell me about the podcast that you guys have.
Go for it.
Okay. So we were at a beer garden, and we were just talking about how much we like the city and living in Germany and just our experiences. And our two lovely girlfriends, who are over here in the back, were saying, you guys should do a podcast about it. You both have voices that are deep, and he's a voice actor. And it taught me actually how to speak clearer, which I still struggle with a bit. But you should do a podcast about it. And we thought, that sounds like a good idea. And we waited months and months. And then Jeff's like, let's just buy some mics and get started. And I'm not a huge podcast listener, really. So I really didn't know what to do. And I know you listen to a bit, right?
Yeah, I did. But not. I had maybe 3 or 4 podcasts that I was really into at the time, and I had like the audio equipment because I was doing the voice. So I think that kind of helped us.
And a topic that like is always on your mind, like it's a natural thing to talk about.
Yeah.
But like yourself, we discovered, there's a whole, there's like a whole community here of podcasts and YouTubes and Instagram about being, an expat in Germany. So we thought we needed somehow to make us a bit different. And we thought, let's just drink some whiskey because it'll loosen us up a bit.
And we like whiskey.
So we started doing whiskey, and then we realized very quickly that's a very expensive podcast to run.
Yeah.
Once you got the mics and everything like that, that's fine. But once you have to get a new bottle of whiskey every week, you're talking, €300 a month or something like that. Yeah. So
you think we would have thought of that before, but it was about episode 3 when we're like, this adds up, and
this is gonna be expensive.
And then we started switching to those kind of small like mini bar bottles,
But you can't get a good taste out of that.
No.
And then we also learned too that we shouldn't drink too much. We have a famous episode 2 that was never released.
The lost episode. We call it,
but it's still recorded somewhere.
It's
right?
somewhere.
It's in a vault.
It's locked shut.
We need your early videos, and we need that episode. That's where we're going to dig out of.
Because we did our first episode. So let's do the second one right after.
Okay.
And at this point, we're like 3 beers deep, like 2 whiskeys deep. And we finished recording. Said, man, that was perfect. That was so good.
Best episode.
People are going to love this. Then we listened to it the next day, and it was just
no one's gonna love this.
It was trash. Yeah, you couldn't understand what we were saying. We were talking over each other. Like none of our points made sense. Yeah, it was
screaming.
It's a big trend in Germany.
Yeah, the drunk podcast. Yeah.
Is it?
Is it a thing?
I think you guys need to notch it up again.
Oh man!
Like we reined ourselves in, so now we're the like semi-sober podcast. We've like
half tipsy podcast.
Yeah, we actually have like a specific amount of whiskey. And we know that's the right amount where we can still get some good points across.
But you get carried away sometimes. Like I'll be talking.
If it's a really good whiskey,
yeah. Glass, like,
if it's a really good whiskey, then I'll get a little. Yeah.
But
can you hear him like deteriorating, or does he handle it pretty well when
he handles it better than I do? I think.
Okay.
He's a real professional. He's a concert professional. Yeah.
I think we need to test that scientifically. I think that's on you. You need to see how much he can handle before he actually cannot.
We can try that.
Podcast anyway.
Yeah, we try. Like every 10 minutes, we have to take another glass.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
then just see who just can't handle it.
You have to twist my arm.
Yeah. But like you were saying, I think I think even when I started, there wasn't that many podcasters about this topic. There was more YouTube videos, a lot of YouTubers covering this topic. But when I started, there was just Nicole, the expat cast.
Oh, sure.
She also does that. And my concept was exactly the same as hers. But unlike you guys are like, well, let's think of a gimmick that differentiates us from it. I was like, no, I'm just going to do the same thing. Why not?
It's working though.
But the thing is, what I found about podcasting, and I guess about YouTube as well, is like doesn't matter how many of them there are, because whatever you tend to bring something unique to the table, your own delivery, your own way of doing it, which people attach to. And like we've got a listener in the audience that listens to both podcasts. You get that as well. Like you get those people that they just want to hear all of that content. So they listen to everyone.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a big Venn diagram.
So these are my guests, as you can hear, all very interesting people and very qualified to talk about Berlin. So like I said at the beginning, Berlin is a very special city to me. And one of the things that I mentioned as well, I love the vibrance here. I love how loud it is. The city is so loud. It's another thing coming from my village, how quiet things are in my village at night, which is nice as well. But I've always been a city person, and I love to come where it's just loud. And I tried to record a podcast a few weeks ago with someone in Berlin outside. It was like the worst idea you could have in Berlin. But I thought it was like Sunday, and I thought everything, like if we do it before 11 o'clock in the morning, it should be fine. No, not fine at all. And eventually we found a little Hinterhof where we could record the episode. There was like a little theater there and everything. And then it was just the birds were insanely loud. So, but I love how loud Berlin is. But like I said earlier, what I'm curious is these are just my observations in coming here. I'm interested in what life is specifically like here, and I've got some questions that I'm going to ask you guys just to give me an idea, and the listeners who either might be thinking of moving to Berlin, and people who are just generally interested, what life is like in Berlin, specifically for foreigners. So the first one that I have for you, and I'm just going to throw it out, and then you can decide who answers or what how you want to do this. But the first thing is, like, I'm interested in your first impressions. I think you mentioned that you had the initial period. You also had maybe what you could call a honeymoon phase. How has Berlin differed from those first impressions that you might have had?
I'll start. My very first impression was, so back when the Tegel airport was open, still the best airport in the world, in my opinion.
Controversial.
It was right? It was an October day, and it was kind of rainy. It's like Berlin October. It's just terrible. And I was taking the bus into Friedrichshain in this area, and I was looking around. I had this picture of Europe in my head, and Berlin was not that. I'm seeing all these old, DDR buildings. It was gray. It was kind of gross. And I thought, this was a big mistake. This is not Europe. I'm thinking Prague, Munich, Paris. Yeah, no, not Berlin. So that was my first impression. But then I went out and I got to see the charm of the city. And then I kind of really fell in love very quickly. And I still kind of feel like I'm in the honeymoon phase. It's
how long have you been here? 9 years.
Overnight. Yeah.
All right.
And I still feel like, I don't know, it's just such a wonderful city. And it's just so big and different. And I still think I would explore 60% of the city. Like the West, I never go West. So I should do that. And I can do that. And it'll still be something new to me. Am I alone there?
No.
Okay, cool.
No, it's a huge city that is so spread out. I think people don't realize how large Berlin, it goes so far beyond the ring. It's not just the ring. I think 2/3 of Berlin is outside of the ring.
And there's also no real city center. So as a tourist, it's difficult.
Yeah, it is. That's something that confused me. That whole ring concept confuses me every time I'm here. And the fact that there's no, there's an Innenstadt, but there's everything so distributed all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, it used to be a bunch of little cities. Yeah. So it's kind of like every district has its own center. Yeah. But if you're a tourist here and you don't know that, you go to Alexanderplatz, which is nothing and boring and it's terrible.
Terrible.
There.
Yeah, I think as a tourist for a week, it's difficult because there is no, this is the one place you go, and because you should check out this area, and Berlin's huge, so that's okay. That's 45 minutes. That's half an hour. That's this, so, But I actually had the same problem as him the first time I came, which was just before I moved, just to check out Berlin for a week. I made the mistake of coming in mid-December. And anybody who lives in Berlin knows that Berlin is just depressing as hell in the winter. It's just so dark and gray and cloudy, and all the trees are dead, and it's just I know all cities in winter are depressing, but Berlin is just, there's never blue skies or
There's a special amount of depression in the city in the winter.
Yeah. And so I came, and that was like the first thing that hit me was just this depression. And I chose and I didn't know anything about where you should stay. So the one street I got an Airbnb on, or wherever I was staying, was just this like really run down, depressing street. And then it was gray and winter, and it's extra depressing. And
God, what have I done?
And I just
It's a great city, man.
It sounds like you just keep selling it.
I really did not fall in love with it at all that first week. But then when I officially moved to Berlin a few months later, I moved in end of April. And of course, Berlin in summer is just gorgeous. And there's just, and everybody in winter is kind of inside. So when I saw everybody outside, and I saw the noise and the chaos of it, and the cool vibe, and I could actually walk around comfortably. So I'm checking out all the different neighborhoods. I loved it because, like you said, you can be whoever you want to be in Berlin, and nobody gives a shit. You know what I mean? Like people could care less in a nice way. Do whatever you want to do as long as you're not hurting anybody else. Be what you want to be. We'll leave you alone. And I fell in love with that.
And Germans are good at that generally, just like keeping to themselves. So it's even better that way.
They stare a lot. They do stare at you.
Unless you're doing something they think is against the rules, then they will not stay to themselves.
It is all about the rules. You're right. Yeah.
And just to any Germans who might be here, this is something that I say often on the podcast, is that, there's a reason we're all in Germany. We love Germans. We love Germany.
Of course,
but we do sometimes mention things that the Germans do that might be a bit weird or odd to foreigners, kind of thing. But we do love you.
We do. That's why we're still here.
That's why we're still here.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? Your first impressions?
So I actually first came during the summer.
Nice.
So my
Good
experience was nicer, and I actually really enjoyed it. I was obsessed with it instantly, and I really didn't want to leave after 2 weeks because I was only visiting first. And I thought I could totally see myself living here in every aspect. And then I had to leave, and I went back to Bulgaria, and I was really sad. But I knew that there was an opportunity for me to live here again. So then when I discussed with my partner, we should actually finally live together. And we finally decided, okay, Berlin is the one. And he'd already been living there for 3 months. So he kind of knew what was going on. He could go and look for a place for us. So it was kind of I didn't have to go into some weird alleyway and find in an Airbnb. So I think it was a bit better.
Get a better first impression probably.
Yeah. So that was a little nicer, but it's just really tough finding also apartments here. I think this is a whole topic on its own, is finding a place to live, and
especially now.
And just if you're looking for something short term, especially it's a little easier maybe, but I don't know, it's tough because you can't go and see the place, you have to just look at pictures online, and then you have to just hope for the best that when you get there it is what it is, and that is not
I can feel my anxieties rising as you're telling me.
And then you're there with 40 other people fighting them for the same apartment.
And of course, not to forget that you're a foreigner. You may not, I don't know what your German level's like. You said you're still learning.
It's not great now.
Yeah, so that you also have that disadvantage that you're dealing with German.
You're put at the bottom of the list.
Because maybe you don't understand everything, and then when it comes to contracts, it's all in German. So
so thankfully I have my boyfriend for that. But it was still very stressful, and that was a bit of a culture shock. And another thing is that you have to buy kitchens separately.
Yes.
I'm sorry. What? So that was
or even
I was
just
so
lights.
confused.
You walk in, and there's just wires hanging out of the ceiling. Why would you take the lights?
Not even a bulb. Yeah, not even a bulb.
Any sense.
But it's I would imagine that when Germans go into an American place, or even for me in a South African place, they'd be like, why are they people forgot their lights in their kitchen when they moved out. No, that's what people in the rest of the world do when they move out. Those things stay.
Even the fridge stays.
The refrigerator stays.
Yeah.
I know.
So nothing stays here basically, and that was pretty odd.
Yeah.
But it's all good. Yeah.
Okay. But you're feeling still after 10 months, 11 months here?
9-ish.
Nine-ish is still pretty positive.
Yeah, no, I'm really enjoying it still. And I think I'm more used to things now that I thought, like I said, were a bit odd at the beginning. Now I'm it's just how it is.
That's how it is. Yeah, you get used to. I am very Germanized.
Yeah.
Very Germanized.
Yeah.
It's kind of incredible how your personality kind of changes.
Yeah.
Sure.
If I see someone riding their bike on the sidewalk, I get really heated. and they ring their bell. I'm like, no. This is for me, not for you.
I must write to someone.
That.
You have a spot.
Yes. Relatable.
Yeah, right.
This
Very
is what it
passive
looks like in 10 years from now. Just so you know.
Yeah.
But it is. It's interesting. But so let's get back to that apartment topic, that's also one of the questions that I had for you. Like, this is something that you read about a lot. People are always saying how difficult it is to find apartments and stuff. What was it like for you? I mean, I think I saw in a recent video you said you're about to start looking in September or something?
Yeah, our lease ends. Well, we actually just got short term because we weren't sure how long we'd be here at first, and we wanted something furnished. And so we actually were looking on Spot a Home, which a lot of people say is like scams, but we were fine with it. So a lot of people asked me like, "Oh, are you sure?" I've heard it's like they scam you on there, but we were okay with it. We actually got it quite easily, maybe because we're a couple. Maybe that's easier. I've heard stories that if you're a couple, it's easier. If you're like more like just guys or stuff, it's I don't know. But but that was only supposed to be for 6 months. And then we kind of like extended it. We were like, can we stay another 6? So we've had it for a year now, but now they're like, yeah, you need to get out.
Yeah.
So,
It's time, okay?
So,
it's time.
We got to raise
so
that
we have
rent.
to find something else, and we're dreading it, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about you guys? Was this difficult? to
Yeah.
find
I
something?
mean, unfortunately, like I've been a freelancer my whole life. And in Germany, if you're a freelancer, you're basically kind of subhuman. Like you don't deserve an apartment.
I'm pretty sure that's not written in the
It's the same as not
rules
being
anyway.
unemployed as far as they're concerned. So for the first 3 years I lived in Germany, I had 8 different apartments because all I could get was 3 months like sublets, like Untermietvertrag. That's all I could. Nobody would give me a full on apartment. So it'd just be kind of like, a girl or a guy is studying abroad for 3 months. I'd stay at their I'd rent their place, and then I'd have to move on every 3 months.
God.
And it took me a long time to get to the point. And then I did some vegas, some flat shares. And it was only after living in Germany for 7 or 8 years, finally, I was able to get my own apartment. You know what I mean? And I got lucky on that, so yeah.
But that's often what I hear when people find apartments in Berlin. Like almost everyone says, I got lucky on it. So I guess there's a certain element of luck.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My first apartment was with my friend from the States. And when she told me I could live with her, she didn't tell me that there was no room for me to live there. It was like I think like a 35 square meter apartment. And I said, where am I going to stay? She said, I don't really know yet, but we'll figure something out. And so what we figured out was, so above the kitchen, there was like a crawl space about, half a meter. Maybe.
You're kidding right now.
No. No joke.
What?
And so we put a mattress up there, got like a ladder from Bauhaus, and then taped the ladder to the floor so it wouldn't slide because it slid once and it was like I almost knocked my teeth out. So yeah, 8 months I was sleeping up there, but it wasn't that bad to be honest because she was a really good cook.
It sounds.
So in the morning,
I just wake up to the bacon going up.
literally in the morning she would tickle my feet and I just kind of go over a little hungover, get some bacon, and go back to bed. So it wasn't terrible, but it's definitely
sound terrible at all.
It sounds really Berlin.
not really
though.
long-term solution, though. I was it's definitely not long-term solution, but I was 22 years old. I was in Berlin. I was in Europe.
Yeah.
I was like, this is how people live. It's not, but this is what I thought.
But didn't you tell me she was making you pay half the rent though?
Yeah, and I paid half the
Come
rent.
on.
Yeah. So I definitely got the shit out of the deal there. Yes, I was paying €300 a month
For a hole.
for a hole.
Yeah.
For a little attic.
And bacon, yeah.
Yeah, and bacon.
Bacon.
I think
that is true. That is a
and
very
great
good point.
food
Like
generally.
half the rent seems fair.
Yeah,
It does.
that's
Does
fair.
seem fair.
Right? Especially I didn't have a job or anything.
I've never had bacon in any of my rental contracts before, so
Hey, that's Berlin. But no, but she's. I still love her. She's a great person. But I didn't realize that half was not because we agreed to it before I moved.
Yeah.
But yeah, then after that, I moved in with 2 Polish guys. We had a great time together, and then it was kind of short lived because then I was with my girlfriend. We moved in together in another tiny apartment, and we were pretty lucky actually. We found another place that was a bit bigger in Neukölln. It's an area that I love. I always want to live in, and recently been fortunate enough to buy a place 3 years ago.
Okay.
And in the same area that we live now. So I think I've actually had a lot of luck, or I don't know, she's also German too, and that makes a big difference too.
Yeah.
So when we go viewing for apartments, she's like, shut up. Don't say a word.
you don't even say anything.
Do not say a
Let
word.
me handle this.
And I walk in like, this is nice. No, nothing. You are German today. And you are
very
mute.
quiet
You are mute German.
And you walk a few steps behind me.
And that's what I did. I was just kind of there to take some pictures and kind of hide and let her deal with everything else. So advice would be just find someone who's German and is attracted to you, and they'll figure out everything.
Just
Don't-
that's all you have to do.
And I do
Don't-
nothing.
Yeah.
Don't say this podcast doesn't deliver the information that you
Get
need.
something else.
Just find someone that's attracted to you and is also German who
Yeah.
will handle the
Easy
accommodation stuff.
peasy.
All right, there we go. We're done. But what's interesting to me as well is that this is something I hear a lot from people in Berlin specifically, is that even you're moving for a second time, or you have to move for a second time. You guys have moved like, I don't know, dozens of times between the two of you in the time that you've been in Berlin. And that seems to be, I don't know whether that's city life or whether that's specifically Berlin, but I think it's also something to do with Germany as well, with how fluid the living arrangements seem to be.
I think it also be an age thing as well, because we both moved here very young.
True.
So obviously I'm not going to live in a crawl space or, in the same apartment when I'm 22 as I am when I'm 32,
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Who knows?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I guess if you can afford a really nice place when you're 22. But I think I think Germans do move around a lot, but also I think it's an age thing too.
Mm.
I mean, we're also foreigners, so I don't know how much of, like, it would have been easier for us to find apartments if we weren't.
Yeah.
I can't say, but that might have played a part as well. So,
Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with the city, because if I look at where I'm living in the village, like, people don't leave. They're there for multiple generations. Like, kids are going to the same kindergartens that their omas and opas went to kindergarten.
Are there places to move into?
There's also no place to move into. No, they every now and then they'll have a Neubaugebiet, a new area where some development goes up, and those are gone. But there's only 30 or 40 places, and then that's it for the next 20 years or so. So it's like pretty static. You just stay where you are in the country. So another question that I have, and maybe this is a bit vague or anything, but I'm interested to know what you think the Berlin has given you specifically that's meaningful to you.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind would say, like, it's given me a level of openness that maybe I didn't have before. Like, I always felt like I was a pretty open, liberal person. Grew up in California, but being in Berlin, what separates it from Germany is, like, you're not only learning about German culture and German language, you're learning about French culture, French language, Spanish culture, Czech culture, because it's such a melting pot of so many different. There's so many foreigners living in Berlin specifically. Yeah. It's just opened me up to so many different kind of ways of living that I would not have experienced if I had stayed in California. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I would probably have to say it's made me more open. I couldn't really tell you in what ways specifically, but I know it definitely has. And just because Berlin is a anything goes kind of a city. So after a certain amount of time, nothing is weird to you. You know what I mean? Like, just like you see a horse in the U-Bahn or something, you're like, well, yeah, makes sense
of
to
course.
me. Like, so you
Probably tired.
So, like, you become very just accustomed to almost to everything. You know what I mean? Which I guess in a way makes you a better person, just because like nothing phases you, and you're just like, yeah, sure, like, go for it. Like, yeah, why not?
We're going to stop here to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Ross, the host of Smells Like Humans, a show about interesting and quirky human behavior. We bring humor, empathy, and warmth to topics such as relationships, dating, work, self-compassion, weddings, phobias, aging parents, travel mishaps, death, and many more. Ever wonder what happens at a cuddle party? We talk about it. Free-range kids in restaurants? We've got some thoughts. Bedtime stories for adults? We're on it. Light, fun, unscripted conversation and personal stories. Please join us by clicking the link in the show notes.
Yeah, I feel like I feel really like I found a sense of belonging somewhere, because I moved a lot during my short time.
Clearly, yeah.
I'm only like 28, so it's been a lot of movement and a lot of having to always make new friends and settle in somewhere. So I feel like Berlin really has this warm, welcoming feeling, and you just feel like you're part of the city, even if you don't really understand what's going on, or you don't know that much about the culture at the beginning or the language. It still feels just this warmth that you get being here. And I could really see myself living here for a long time just because of that. And as I mentioned, now that I have a job here as well, that's been really nice to like settle in. So I just feel like a place where I'm like comfortable and feel welcomed and feel like I have a purpose, and it's really nice.
That's amazing. And it's something that I feel even when I visit. I don't know why, but that's something that Berlin seems to be unique as a tourist. But like I said, I do have a special connection to Berlin. But when I'm here, I do feel like I'm part of it all of a sudden. And I'm literally just got here today, and I was like walking around the S-Bahn. I'm like, yeah, this is my city for some reason. It just felt like my city. So that's interesting.
Yeah. very, very similar to definitely my worldview open. I mean, I come from the smallest state in the United States, Rhode Island. So it's very homogenous. You know, it's just a bunch of Rhode Islanders. They all stay there and live there like your little village. So coming to Berlin, you know, I was meeting people from all over the world that I have no opportunity to meet normally if I stayed in the States. And it really, I was like, I didn't realize how much of the world I was missing out on until I came here. So definitely being more open, and I'm still learning more and more. And I think it kind of get me in that mindset of wanting to learn more all the time, which is cool. And then also, like professionally, when I was studying to teach in the States, early childhood, it's not done in the way I personally agree with in the States. And I can actually do my career in a path that I am way more connected to. And I just couldn't do that in the States. I could do it here because Germany, early childhood is fantastic for the most part. Yeah.
So that kind of leads me on to another question that I've had. I often hear people say, especially Germans, say that Berlin isn't Germany. So I guess what they're trying to say is that the experience that you have here in Berlin is maybe very different to what you would have even in another city like Munich. I don't know. Have you guys seen enough to comment on that? Is it something you agree with, disagree with?
100%.
100% what?
Yeah, I agree
with.
Yeah,
agree.
It's not like the rest of Germany in a lot of ways, I would say.
Okay. Olivera, you agree?
I agree for sure.
Okay.
I think so. I mean, I think there's definitely like it's German traits all over the place that you like recognize, whether you're in, I don't know, Berlin or Munich or Hamburg or whatever, but in the whole sense, it's definitely so, like you mentioned, you walk around, you sometimes only hear English, you know, and that's not Germany. So
it feels more like a European capital than a German capital. It's like its own weird little bubble.
Right.
That like, that's Berlin and everything else is everything else in a weird way.
It's kind of like saying like London's not really England. But this, I don't know. I feel like
it's true. And New York City, like when I think of going to New York City, like that is completely different to the experience that I've had in Seattle when I've been in Seattle, for example. So I guess it's along those lines. Like any of these big metropolitan cities is maybe not an accurate representation of what the country is.
Yeah, no.
But then you go to Munich, and for me that's very German for some reason. Like Munich is super German.
But we don't like Munich.
Well, there you go. We've just dismissed an entire city, folks.
Done.
Don't even bother moving there. I'm not even going to do a live show there. Forget it. So that's interesting. One of the other things that I think a lot of people might be wondering is how easy is it to make friends in Germany? Because something I hear a lot on the podcast, and we've actually, I think one of the episodes that we had on your show, I think it was about making friends in Germany. What is that like? Would you say that it's easy to make friends in Berlin, or what is your thought on that?
I think it depends on you as a person, like how open you are to like socializing and going out and trying, you know, you do need to try at the end of the day. But I think like nowadays we're lucky to have like apps as well that help. Like for example, I have a friend who has literally met all her friends on Bumble Friends. So like not spons, but like, you know, if you are moving here, it's a good place to go. And it's apparently a bit weird in certain countries and people are like not really using it and the people are strange. But in Berlin, I've heard it's very cool and there's some really interesting people to meet. So that's one way. And
I think it's easy to meet people if you put in the effort, I would say. You know, it's very easy to be very lonely and depressed in Berlin if you allow yourself to be, you know what I mean? If you're not especially if you just moved here and you're not pushing yourself to go to events or to, you know, go onto the Facebook groups and be like, hey guys, I'm going to go play ping pong. Who wants to join me? Or, and you don't have a job, or you're not going to a German class, and if you're not forcing yourself to meet people, it can be pretty lonely. And I can see, and I've, like you mentioned before earlier, a lot of the people I've met who after 3 months are like, I got to get out of here. I hate Berlin. It's because they didn't really have the opportunity to make a friend group, or, you know, to kind of replace that hole you have when suddenly you're not near your family and friends from back home. You know, if you don't replace that hole, then I could see why people hate, they think they hate Berlin, but it's more the situation, you know, that you're in, you know. So, but I think if you push yourself, it's easy to meet people because there's so many people in the same position as you know, who are new, you know, to Berlin.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, back in 2013, I don't think we had any of these apps. We couldn't really use that.
I know. No. You kids
that
have
sounds
it.
awesome.
I don't know who's coming to Germany. You've got it so good.
Yeah. But I found it kind of difficult because as an American, you know, you go to a bar and then you'll meet somebody and like 3 seconds. You know, you go to the
You
bar,
mean in the States?
in the States.
Yeah.
In the States. So, you know, oh, you're drinking Budweiser, I'm drinking Budweiser. Let's talk about Budweiser. And then you make a friend either for the night or it could, you know, go on later. Where Germans obviously are not like that.
Yeah.
So my first time trying to make friends, I went to like 6 bars in a night. And
Was that you with the goal of making friends?
with the goal of making
going
friends.
out
And I came home without talking to a single person.
Aw.
I know, I tried.
I didn't realize this was going to be a sad story.
Yeah,
You started
it
off well.
really sad. But I think, like you said, I think language courses are a great way to meet people.
Yes.
Obviously, work. One of my best friends I met from language school back in 2014, and we're still friends now because you have that connection automatically. You practice together or whatever it might be from work. But I think it is probably easier in Berlin than maybe other areas where it is more international and people are in a very similar situation.
Yeah.
English is easier. So in conclusion, I don't know. I don't know.
Long story short, I have no idea. But I think it is. I agree with what you're saying. I think it's more. It depends on you as a person because if you're more of an introvert, it's obviously more difficult to put yourself out there in those difficult situations because naturally it's not something you want to do. But I think that a city like Berlin has a lot more opportunities to find the right thing that suits you. And it's something that I often say on my podcast is like, just go join the clubs. There's a Verein for everything. Even out in the countryside. Yeah. But with us, it's more like potato Vereins and, I don't know, like tractors and stuff. But in the city, you have more of a mix. You've got more of a wide variety of things going on here. So I think that's also, I think it's a good idea to move to a big city like Berlin when you get to Germany because there's a lot more opportunities and also more opportunities to meet foreigners, which is also important in the beginning.
Yeah, there's something for everybody. There's a niche for everybody for what you want to do, and you can definitely find a Verein or something for it. Yeah,
and also that foreigner connection that you were saying, like you're still good friends with people that you met at language course or something. That some of the best friends I still have in Germany are also people that I met in that first year, foreigners that I met in that first year because we were going through the front lines together. We were crying on each other's shoulders and saying, "Why don't Germans like me?" And that like forges a bond that you can never break, I think. Okay, so I always hear about how unique, like horse in the U-Bahn or something was the example. But like, what's the weirdest thing you've ever seen in Berlin? Have you seen some things that you can remember going, well, that's just
I think that you said once everything is weird, like nothing is weird.
Yeah, I was gonna say like it doesn't faze you anymore. So,
but
it's hard to remember because you get so used to it. But you just see like you go like the other day I was in U-Bahn. There was I walk in and there's a desk and there's a guy sitting at the desk, like almost as if he's like has his own like night his like talk show. But like he was just moving his desk to his new apartment and he was just sitting behind it. But you walk on, there's guys sitting at a desk, but you go and then you're just like you don't even like think about it. You're just like yeah sure because you've seen weirder. You know what I mean? You're like yeah okay why not?
That's awesome.
Yeah, I can't think of another specific situation though.
I think one of the weirder things was our friend's dog got high on drugs.
what?
Which is also very Berlin, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, because the dogs they like to sniff poo and stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess it licked poo from maybe someone who was high before. We don't know what happened, but the vet said, yeah, your dog is high. So that's pretty weird.
I have so many questions that I'm just going to leave on the table because, like, what poo was it licking? Why would... Okay, no, we're just going to...
I don't know. It's a high dog.
That's a great...
The dog's okay. It was all good.
Now the dog's good.
Just acting a little bit, a little funny for a while.
But it always remembers that day. Like, damn, that was a good day.
That was a great day. What happened?
It's like been looking
I
for
gotta find some
everywhere.
poo.
I need to get that high again. Well, that took a turn that I did not expect it to take. I want to know, like, what is each of yours favorite place in Berlin and why? Like, is there a reason? Do you have a special place that means something to you? Or
Right here
a
with
favorite
you.
place? Huh?
Sitting here right here with you.
You're a charmer. I like that.
Ooh,
Probably for me is Tempelhofer Feld, the old airport that's now a big park. And I live right near there. And the first time I saw it, I thought it was like, this is the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Only in Berlin would they not develop apartments on there. But say, no, it's a park now. Yeah. And you can grill there and, people are kite surfing and skateboarding and rollerblading and just like that, I feel like is a perfect snapshot of Berlin, Yeah. It's open, it's free, it's relaxed. Everyone's got a smile on their face. Yeah, that's just a very special place in my heart.
Yeah.
I love
And
it
it's
there.
bizarre as well because it's not a park. Like,
There are no trees.
there's no
There-
trees.
yeah.
I know.
It's just a bit of tarmac, a bit of grass, and like a radio tower. And that's it. And then I always see people there every time I come to Berlin.
And you're hanging out on an airport.
Old airport.
How
And
cool
of
is
course,
that?
the history
cool.
of that
Yeah.
airport with the, what were they called? The Luftbrücke or
Yeah,
whatever
and
it was called.
the candy bombers, right?
Yeah.
What's it called? Yeah.
Yes. And it's amazing that happened there, that it's still there, that they haven't built a park. It's just, it is.
They tried.
it is
Berlin
cool.
tried. People like protested.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
that works
This is
here?
int-
Your protests work? That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
So hopefully it stays that way.
Such a huge space in the middle of a city. Yeah,
It is.
And
It is a
as an evil developer, of course, you'd be like, "Oh my god,
have
I could
to
fit like
develop
1,000
it."
homes there." You know,
Of course.
But I heard something, and this is completely, I'm just talking like off the cuff here, so this could be wrong and could be fake news or whatever. But I read that it's actually important to the ecology of Berlin, like somehow the heat distribution or the, no? Anyway?
I could see
Never
that.
heard of it?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Sure, yes.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, and of course, they also have festivals and rock concerts there because
Yes.
I was at that Temple of
We were also
Sounds.
there.
I know, that's what I wanted to say
Both
quickly.
of us were there.
Yeah, we were both there.
I've been wanting to have a beer with these guys for like ages, and I was in Berlin specifically for this rock festival. And then afterwards, I said, "Sorry, I didn't manage it. I was at this rock festival." I'm like, dude, we were there too. So
it was cool. Which day were you there? Saturday or
all
Sunday?
days, all
Oh,
days.
nice.
I was
Wow.
there the whole time.
It was
Yeah.
great though. I mean,
Yeah, I had a best time.
and like one of the best organized rock. I mean,
it was really
Amazing.
It was amazing.
Free water.
yeah, free water. You could use
Wow.
cards to pay for
That's
everything.
huge.
Yeah.
That's
It's
huge.
starting to sound like they're sponsoring us at this point, but it was when that festival happens next year, that is one of them that I would consider going to
Sure.
because
Oh, yeah.
because like just the way everything was, and it was still relatively small. It's like a newish indie rock festival. It was really cool.
And all the bands were like top
They were
notch. So
amazing.
good.
But I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you could like stand outside and see everybody.
You could.
because it's
That
on
was
Temple
what was
Walk.
cool.
You know?
Yeah.
There's no
So-
barrier.
There were people like sort of parking off outside
Along the fence, yeah.
along the fences because they could see the main stage and hear it just fine. So they had to pay
Pretty cool.
like €0.
It's fair enough.
We're the
So-
chumps that paid money for it.
Yeah, exactly. So, sorry, did you have a favorite place that you know yet?
I would say Bramable Donuts. That's probably the one.
Okay, that
No, but
sounds.
seriously, like if you do ever come to Berlin, it is a place to go because they have insane donuts and they're all vegan, which is just a bonus. But
bonus.
you don't have to be vegan to eat them. So yeah, but no, like Komalanka, I went recently, like the lake area there, and it's so beautiful. Like it's unreal, and you don't need to pay entry or queue up, which you do in Wannsee. So don't go to Wannsee.
Okay, so like Wannsee.
Waited 2 hours to get into that lake.
Really?
Yeah, and you have to pay to get in, which I found quite. This is one of those weird things. Like I don't know, maybe in the States and stuff, you have to pay to like visit lakes, but like
Yeah,
here
had
it's a
some in the
thing.
ocean. You have to pay
Yeah.
to like go to like the club to get access to the beach, which is ridiculous. It's the beach.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that
it
was
is
a bit
weird.
weird to me, you know.
I know what you mean. Like, I just want to go to a lake,
Just sit
just
there.
jump in.
Yeah.
You know, like it just has like a, you know,
That was a
it's
bit
a
odd,
public
yeah.
space. Yeah,
Yeah.
But hey,
Okay.
it's not as weird as not getting free water, as we mentioned. Like you
Yeah.
have to pay for water here.
That's also crazy.
That was wild.
Yes.
The donuts thing leads me on to another question that I have:
Mm-hmm.
the food culture here now, and you specifically as a vegan. You said Berlin is great for that.
Yeah, it's so good. I
Yeah.
mean, it's probably the best city in the world. That's
Okay.
like really good for it. Like I mean, there's a restaurant on every corner that like has either is fully vegan or offers at least one vegan option, which I think is insane. Like you'll even find like vegan currywurst, you know, in like a really intense like sausage shop. There'll be like a vegan option and you're like, whoa. So that's so cool. And it's been so easy to like eat out with friends. If you're vegan, you don't feel like the awkward one that has to people have to go like to a specific place just for you. Cause I hate that. And it's nice to be able to go somewhere where everyone has an option. And then supermarkets as well, you know, the alternatives and whatnot. It's like, it's just wild.
And it's growing
So many
more and more and
it's
more every
so
year.
it's growing. It's intense.
Very
so
cool.
It's amazing. Yeah.
What about you guys? The food culture. Do you eat out a lot?
Yeah, I mean, I love the options we have here because I think German restaurants account for like less than
1%,
like 5% of Berlin.
Yeah.
I mean, Berlin is just like Vietnamese, Thai, Moroccan,
Turkish.
this, that, and the other
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, Turkish.
Yeah,
of
like you just have so many options, and like the neighborhood we live like with meters, there's like 20 different cafes and restaurants, and it's like every day you could eat from a different country. I love it. Like, and the food here is really good. And as you mentioned, like there's so many vegetarian options as well. You know, it's not that I think that sets it apart from places like Bavaria, where it's like very meat centric.
Yeah, it's very much so. Yeah.
Like Munich, I couldn't eat anything. I
Okay.
had to eat potatoes and cabbage, and that's
That's
cute.
interesting.
But I was like,
Oh man, a lot of protein there.
yeah. So it's been good here.
Yeah, that's not something I've thought of, but yeah,
Yeah.
of course it's very meat centric down there. So I've got a few more questions before we wrap up, because I think we're starting to get to about the time. Like, I still have no time.
No idea.
I have no idea what time we started, but
But you can feel it in your heart.
I'm
that we're,
feeling like
on the verge of
the sound
yeah.
guy came up and looked at me, but he didn't give me any indication. Then he disappeared again. And I'm like,
You're waiting for like the
5 minutes. I'm not going to stop until you tell me. So I'll ask some of the questions. It's not all the questions that I had left. What do you dislike about Berlin?
Winter. Of course.
But I think that's
Yeah, we talked
like
about
all over Germany.
That's
But
a
at
good-
least if I was in Bavaria, I could go skiing.
And yeah, that's true. And the countryside is very beautiful when it's
Right.
snows and stuff. Yeah.
It's quite dirty.
It is.
Yeah, I would
Like, I
echo that.
actually think it's
like,
quite dirty
Like the
city.
parks are fantastic, but you sit on like a million cigarette butts, and like
Yeah.
I think it could be cleaner.
You don't know what
Yeah.
you're sitting on sometimes, and it's a bit like worrying, And like toilets and public toilets are kind of nasty here. So I don't know.
In comparison to a city like Munich as well, it's very very dirty.
Oh, Munich is.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you go there and it looks like somebody's just scrubbing with a sponge every day. Like I was like, what? And there's not a lick of graffiti anywhere. I'm like, what is this? How do they even have
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, I mean, one of the
How does-
first
how does
words
this exist?
One of the first words that I learned when I was living in Würzburg was Kehrmaschine, which is these machines that go and clean the streets. Like, you see them so often, you have to learn the word for them. Like on day 2, like, what's that? Okay, yeah, it is. I was noticing it even on my walk down here when I seen the amount of litter everywhere. That was surprising to me. That's not something I would see down in the big cities down in Bavaria.
And this area, like 5-6 years ago, was totally different.
Yeah.
Mall wasn't there. It wasn't paved. Like, it was
Okay.
really, really gross. It smelled like pee everywhere. So I think it is getting better, but it is very dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also, I think Berlin, even I love it that way, but I also hate it sometimes. It is sometimes too big.
Mm.
You know, everywhere is a half an hour to get to at least. Like, even down the street's a half an hour for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And you go to like cities like Leipzig, which kind of is a Berlin vibe, and you can walk everywhere, and that's super nice.
Yeah.
And I think Berlin has too many cars, but we've talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
There's too many cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't like cars.
I hate
Yeah,
cars.
but I mean, for me, like Berlin has one of the best public transit networks in the world. I mean, the U-Bahn, the S-Bahn here. I mean,
Exactly. So we don't
you
need cars.
throw a rock from your house, you're gonna hit a
Yeah.
tram or an U-Bahn or S-Bahn.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing to me how easy it is to get from point A to point B. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah,
fantastic, man.
It does sometimes take a while though, because I've realized that sometimes the connections, or at least to me, the connections are like you go up somewhere and then you have to come down and then come back to get to
I
somewhere
think
that
that's
you want to go.
Friedrichshain because you know how it is. Like you have to go up to Alexanderplatz to come back down into Kreuzberg. There's many connections across the Spree. You know,
But then when you look on Google Maps and see how long it would take you to drive there, it would take just as long or longer, and you're like, okay, well, the public transport is still pretty good.
Yeah.
and by I mean,
And by bike is
bike,
king.
yeah.
Like,
I do
is
bike.
king.
Yeah, summer I do bike for everything. I love like it's so easy and there's such great cycling lanes and everything, man.
Yeah. So I want to say thank you to Oliveira for making the time, and to Jeff and Alex as well for
Sure.
taking the
Thank
time.
you.
Of course.
To come on. Again, thank you to Podfest Berlin for the organization. Thank you to people who've sat here and listened to us. It's the Germany Experience podcast. Oliveira Darko, Instagram and YouTube. Americans in Germany drinking whiskey. You've got to shorten that. Americans in Germany drinking whiskey.
It was hard just to even find a logo. Like when we got a logo, the graphic designer was like, "Can you make your name shorter? It'd be so much easier for the logo." We're like, "Sorry, we're already registered as
It's
that
done.
name. Like we can't do it."
The website's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It's too late.
Done. Yeah, and as I said, thank you. This is actually going to be my last episode for a while.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm
Why
going
so?
on. I always take a summer break
Oh.
for my own sanity, because I find like when I get to summertime, it's really difficult. So producing the podcast means that I'm sitting downstairs for 3 to 4 times nights a week in the evenings, once my kids are all in bed, once I've done all the other things that I need to do. And so I find that it just makes it fairly tough to do in summer when the weather is so good, and then I have to drag myself to go
Totally fair.
downstairs.
True.
And also just the thinking about the content creation, because it's over and above my normal job, it's really it can take its toll, especially when there's stresses of preparing a live event or preparing a big episode that's coming up. And so I just like to, I take a complete cut. I don't answer emails. So I may have said info@thegermanexperience.de in the beginning, but I'm not going to answer it until September. So good luck.
If you send in right now, he might take a look.
And Simon knows, he's emailed me a few times, and I don't talk to my manager. He has the same questions. Anyway, thanks everyone. Can I hear it so people can know that there was really a crowd here? Thank you so much. Very cool. Auf Wiederhören.
Ciao.
That's it.
Bye.